allowed to read the rest of your script, or? I want to make sure. For those of you who don't know me, I am Brian's other partner, one of the three amigos. I wore this shirt and bought this shirt specifically for tonight because if you work with Brian in any capacity, whether it be Israel, professionally, personally, you have to drink a lot. So I wanted to remind myself that was the case. And in our scenario, our story started out with drinking, like most good stories in life. So here's a picture of Brian at the local bar that we met at in Denver, Colorado. So the story goes that we used to frequent the same watering hole, and I was there late one night, drunk. I know that shocked some of you. And I was complaining that I wanted to get rid of my high-rise apartment and rent a room in order to save up for a house. So Brian and I didn't know each other very well, and he kind of leans over, two bodies over, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a house up north, and I've got an apartment across the street in case I get too drunk to drive home." So I was a responsible adult even back then. And he says, "You know, I'd be happy to rent your room, but I've only got 6 months on the lease, so you can move in, but you've only got 6 months." So like any hardworking 22-year-old, I said, "Well, shit, I'll break my lease and I'll move in with you." I later found out that he only happened to move in because he didn't have any furniture. So he wanted all of my furniture and none of my time. Kind of fantastic. So when I was asked to come speak tonight, public speaking for me is like the worst possible thing you can ask someone to do. But I have a lot of love and respect for Brian, so I figured, just like I do professionally, I'm happy to make an ass of myself in your benefit. I'm often asked, how did I get into business? And I always answer the same way. I say that I either had a beer with the right guy at the wrong time or the wrong guy at the right time. But Brian and I's history started out with drinking, and then it turned into roommates. So the very first weekend that we lived together, we don't really know each other. I move all my furniture in. We're watching the freaking Steelers, of course. And I hate the Steelers, by the way. So, I hated them before, but now I hate them even more. So we're watching the Steelers. It's the first Sunday. Steelers throw an interception. He walks over, he grabs a chair, he throws it against the wall and breaks into 1,000 fucking pieces. And in true Brian form, because he's such a pain in the ass, but he's also a good human, he stops. He's cussing, he's yelling, he's screaming at the TV, the chair's broken, and it hits him. And he turns around and he goes, "Was that my chair?" And I was like, "No, that was my chair, but I think you and I are going to get along great. I feel like this is something that's going to work out for a long time." So fast forward about another 2 years, we were roommates for several years. Before we were ever business partners, we were friends, which is a rare thing to have in our lifetime, to have a friend and a partner for as many years as Brian and I have been together, 25 years. So we move in, the lease breaks, he decides he's not tired of me. He said, "Hey, if you're graduating from college, you can move up and live with me at the new house." So I'm there for a couple months, and I'm sitting on the couch, not doing much as usual. Brian's mother calls and picks up the phone. He's talking to his mother, and I can kind of hear the conversation. And at this time, Brian's a middle-aged man, no kids, no girlfriend, no wife, living with Andrew. So she says, "Does Andrew have his own room?" So I hear Brian take a deep breath, and he realizes now that I'm listening, right? And he says, "Mom, Andrew's not good." So then 30 seconds more goes by, and then I hear Brian go, "Mom, I'm not good." So, as any good roommate or friend would, every time Brian's mom would call, I'd say, "Hey, sweetie, grab me a beer." "Sweetie, hurry up, we're going to be late to the next party." We're going to be moving. So I tried to do my part. Actually, the first time I ever met Brian's mother was at the last Israel event. She came and participated, and she's sitting down the row, during the opening session. And she kind of figures out that it's me, right? And so she comes up and she says, "I'm so sorry that didn't work out between you and Brian." really wanted a picture of that. I couldn't find one. In fact, when I was asked to come speak, because I don't like public speaking, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And so I decided, okay, I'll agree, I'll do it. And so I'm going through 25 years of pictures. And I only brought 4 tonight because they all had animals, sparkles, giraffes, nudity. I mean, it's like, I can't use that, they're not going to fit that. So just so you know, there's only 4 slides, but it's not because I don't love you or care. It's just, I try to be clean, So you fast forward a little bit. Brian, again, is one of the most wonderful human beings on the planet. I'm about to graduate from college. He says, hey, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to send my resume out. I went to school to be a banker. He says, well, you can, come work in the yard part-time, and help you get some insurance. So driving a forklift, thinking that it's fantastic. As things progress, we become business partners. We start another company doing electronics recycling. And I had this vision in my mind, right? Well, when Brian first came to me and said, hey, do you have any idea what I do? We're roommates, right? So I'm like, I don't know, you pay your electric bill and like pizza. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of meat and potatoes there, right? So when he asked me to come work with him, I had this vision of, here's this guy that's going to be in a hard hat and a safety vest and steel-toed shoes, and out there commanding the world and doing his thing. And that's not what I ended up with. That's what I ended up with. So, for all of you who want to know what it's like at Rocky Mountain Cycling, when I come to work every morning, this is what I get. So just for the record, that's my office. So when I look out my office, that's what I get all the time. Now, thankfully, thank you, Robin, thank you so much for the last 2 years. I appreciate it very much. I'm not looking forward to his return. If there's any way that the past president can take on more responsibility, I think it would be fantastic because I'm really tired of that. And one of the last things I wanted to say, and I've told this to Brian, but I want to make sure I tell all of your friends and colleagues, right, that jumpsuits are for Italians. They're not for the Irish. So we should hold that, as our own. One of the other things that Brian didn't tell me, which is probably because he's a good friend and he didn't want to scare me off, and I hope that he feels like I was a good, partner material for the long haul, is that along with Brian, because he's family with Larry, this is what I get. So, for those of you who don't know, Larry is the all-seeing, all-knowing scrap genius that will absolutely tell you about yourself on Monday for what you did on Friday. So at any point in time, if you feel like you're being confident about your day or your life or anything like that, you can go back to the Brian picture, and then you can figure out what the rest of my day looks like. I just kind of wanted to throw that out. I want to tell one more kind of funny story, and it's more funny between Brian and I just because I hate the freaking Steelers. But, so we're traveling in Europe, and we're in Italy. And we have been traveling together for, about 4 or 5 days. And we are kind of going to some piazzas, and we're looking, and we're at the museum, and he says, hey, Andrew, I'd really like to go get a beer. You want to go to a beer? Well, for those of you who know me, it's not a hard thing to convince me to go, go to a beer. So we're walking through, and we're passing a bar, and walk down this alley, right? Well, Brian, for the previous 2 months, had researched where the freaking Steelers bar was in the town in Italy that we were at, right? So I turn the corner, and there's this bar, and it's got this huge Steelers banner, right? So in true friend and partner form, he turns to me and he says, told you we're worldwide. Worldwide, Andrew. Worldwide. You're all Steelers fans, you just don't know it, So I get that all of the time. Next slide. I wanted to end on a personal note. Brian, you've been my partner, my confidant, my mentor, and my friend. And this is a picture of Brian and I when he gave me an opportunity become a significant partner at Rocky Mountain Recycling, and I'll never forget it. I love you, brother. Yeah.